be the guy. Everyone loves to know a guy. As long as you can be that guy, you'll always be well set in your community.
Yeah.
And so I think we should all be striving to be somebody's guy for something.
Nicky P, what's up, man?
How's it going there, boss?
Oh, living the dream. We're having a snow day in Fort Worth, Texas, which doesn't happen too much, but got the whole family in the house. Most of the roads are pretty rough, so us Texas folk can't drive in the slick roads for sure. You probably know that already.
Well, the Ohio people up here can't drive in the snow either. I'm originally from upstate New York, where we just live in 6 feet of snow for half the year. So I can only imagine Texas is worse if you get snow.
Oh my gosh, man! It can rain a little bit in Texas, and people are freaking out and are terrible at driving in the wet. It gets rough. I drove to work the other day, and it hadn't even started getting real slick, and there was 5 or 6 cars on the side of the road already. So it's just part of it here in Texas, I guess. Hey, so you're working on a book. Marketing is an R word. Tell me what that title means.
I think, especially because there's so many marketers nowadays. Like everybody's a marketer. I mean, you go and if you even set up a web page, you're going to get 3,000 people contacting you every day, claiming, "Oh, I'm a marketer. I'm going to make your web page better." The thing for me is that, I think marketing is something that we all do as people. Or at least when you think of how to market properly, you need to be thinking about it from the perspective of a people. I once did an article called "The 10 Commandments for My Family," and it was all the rules that I laid out for my daughter, like how to maintain relationships, when to maintain relationships, and the things that should be important to you. And one of the things that kind of stuck out to me is all that stuff that I wrote out in that applies to marketing. If we have these buzzwords like know, like, trust that everybody knows in marketing, and that's what you're trying to build. It could easily be shortened to the word rapport. It's the idea that you're going to build a relationship with people, that you're someone that they are willing to look forward to in the future to help them. And at no point in your business does that ever not become true, because if you want people to keep coming back, you have to keep maintaining that level of trust. You go and buy a product, and I can tell you right now, I have plenty of companies that have burned me on a product, and I'll never buy them again. I had an expectation of trust that was turned down. And so, we've entered into the world where, I think to stick out, everyone's writing their own book. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to write a book, that seems like the book that I would write. Let's just kind of talk about relationships and how they pertain to marketing and what you can learn from one to utilize in the other.
Nice. Yeah. There's that old adage, people buy from who they know and trust, which I think a lot of people hear that.
Well, I think commandment number 7 to my daughter in my 10 commandments was be the guy. Everyone loves to know a guy. As long as you can be that guy, you'll always be well set in your community. Yeah. And so I think we should all be striving to be somebody's guy for something.
How long have you been a marketer?
I mean, officially, good hot mic. Officially, I've only been doing it for the past, let's say, since last April, when I officially dove into it. Now, I'd spent 5 years before that as a podcaster and learning all these skills on my own for my own projects and reading absolutely everything I could come up on it. And so I joined a mastermind a little bit over a year ago, and the things that I was kind of timid about saying that I could do, I got people asking me to do for them, and we're very happy with how I did the job. It's oh, well, apparently I am. It took a while to get out from beyond my own imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah.
It's I wish I'd have done this years ago, but
that's how I felt about podcasting as well. I wanted to do it, but I was man, I don't know anything. Why would anybody want to listen to me?
Well,
right?
More importantly, when the world is saying, look, we don't need another white guy podcaster, another dude in his 30s, white, Feels like the world needs to know what he thinks about stuff. We're tired of that. And frankly, I once tried to have a product where literally was just trying to teach parents to start podcasting and to get your
Uh-huh.
kids podcasting. And the reason I think it's so important is because when we started really getting into the era of cancellation, I think that it was so important that you would get out there and actually put out content and lots of it that really dictates who you are. So when someone comes out with accusations, oh, so and so did this and said that, well, I'm on record for thousands of hours saying exactly who I am. And if you think that this one thing that this person's trying to gotcha me with is who I am more, well, I'm sorry. Not to mention you build your tribe and your people that are with you that you're always going to have go to bat for you, so to speak.
So it's almost so you're telling people to podcast because it's almost like recording your life instead of posting something for the audience, but it's almost like a record of you. That's kind of
Absolutely. Like it makes it way tougher for people to presume who you are when you've been screaming it into a microphone for years.
yeah, yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So you said a 30-year-old white guy. Is it? Do you feel like it's a tough time to be white right now?
Not, I would never say that. Like, and to be clear, like I am in a mixed race relationship. I have a very very dark wife. I have
Me
a
too.
I have a very very in between us child.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I would never say that my life is tougher because I'm white. I think that this is certainly not an era where people are at least going to say crap about me. I don't think bodes well for the future. But
Hmm.
in the ways that whiteness is talked about, what it really bothers me is my daughter in the future. Because when you're trying to create a tension between white people, black people, and then you have this generation of people like our generation's kids, there's a lot of not eithers in there. And how are those people going to be treated in a society that wants to make a stark delineation on the dumbest thing in the world?
Yeah, yeah. So how do you feel about just Americans instead of African Americans or Asian Americans? What about assimilation? Is that something that's a tough one, right?
Well, we were talking a little bit earlier about libertarianism, and frankly, I'm a you be who you are person,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't really care who anyone wants to be. Like, um, I I once dated a girl in college who had relatives in the Klan. That was
Mm.
stupid to me, but I didn't really have to worry about them because we were just dating. I probably wouldn't have married her.
Right.
Like, but in that regard, like, there's so few of those people. Like, it's a novelty to be able to say I dated a girl who had relatives in the Klan.
Which
So
brings which
I don't
brings up
worry about
another
it.
point. Yeah, which brings up another point. It's like I don't know what the phenomenon's called, but the the squeaky wheel gets the oil, or the fringe is getting all of the noise. We hear the far left's opinion, we hear the far right's
Mm-hmm.
opinion, but everybody in the middle is real quiet.
Well,
And go ahead.
one of the things that like, and I dwell on that one a lot in particular because it's like I grew up in like a punk rock scene, and one of the things that strikes me is that part of the thing about being punk rock is that we were the outsiders,
Mm,
and it just feels like the punk rockers infiltrated everything
mm,
and then blew up the whole system,
mm-hmm,
and I think that that's not good because it leads to instability. Like, I think that having people that are on the bleeding edge of change is always good. Like, you have the people that push the boundaries and see what works, see what makes us better as people. But you can't have everyone pushing to see how far they can get and what makes it better, because when you do that, there's no center, there's no mass, there's nothing holding it together.
yeah.
It just becomes something that's inevitably going to dissipate. Now, do you need to, be specifically, how do we say it, lock yourself into to make nationality important? I don't know. But to go the other direction, feel like we all have to be part of this concept of one world globalism. Well, that's a whole different thing entirely. And I'm like, I don't like that any more than I like nationalism. I just think we all need to worry about finding the people that make our lives happy and make us capable of making the world, better tomorrow.
Yeah. Speaking of globalization, I just read this book, The End of the World is Just the Beginning. Uh, Peter Thielen, I think is how you say his name, is the author. And it's the brunt of the book is about world demographics, about China's demographics and Russia's demographics. And,
Mm-hmm.
they have an aging population that, in 10 years from now, it's going to be a wild world is what he's saying. But I would definitely keep an eye on globalization, if you will, because according to this guy's book, it's gonna be a lot more local in the next 10, 20 years because globalization is
James
semi failing.
James Howard Kunstler, I think is his name. He's done a lot of work on what, like, he thinks like we've reached peak oil and then it's going to be none, and then we're all going to be living in little tribes again without computers and modern technology. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do think living a more communal life, or with more
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to what's around you more, is always going to be better. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the bottom line is we have a lot of problems specifically because people are focusing on problems that they have no control over. I would personally argue that the fact that we're more concerned about the idea of global warming than soil erosion
Yeah.
is completely bonkers. Like, we have
Mm-hmm.
soil that we can't grow food in anymore, and it'd take 100 years to fix the damage we've done. Meanwhile, there's recorded history of it being a lot warmer and a lot higher carbon concentration. In fact, if you go into any greenhouse in the country, you're going to get higher carbon concentrations because, oh wait, all the food that we eat relies on higher carbon concentrations. It's weird. But meanwhile, no one's talking about the fact that we what was it, 200 tons of topsoil every year goes into the delta there,
Yeah.
with all of that, all the chemicals from bear sitting in there, making it not able to have things living in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
So,
That
sorry to
image
get
is
so
not as clear.
conspiratorial so quickly,
No, no, no. That image is not as clear, so the media can't make the real, the paint the picture of, death and destruction and fear. So they don't hardly talk about that. I don't know enough to speak on, global warming, but it seems that sort of like organic food, organic, that stamp of organic has, it's now a, marketing scheme. Oh, this is organic. Oh, this is organic.
I
Oh,
could
this.
show you the government papers on it. I did a podcast, and my podcast I had used to have called Free Markets Green Earth,
Uh huh.
specifically where we talked about like the hilarious nature of what organic means
Yeah.
in a legal sense, and the number of chemicals that are okay to have on your food and still call
Yeah.
it organic. There's like 200 different chemicals that are
Yeah.
allowed to be present, and it's like, that sure sounds organic.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that uh, the term GMO is demonized. I don't get me wrong. If it's bad for you, it's bad for you. But if a GMO is better for the body, better for humans, then it could be a good GMO. It could be a bad GMO. So we just demonize it right away because it's non-organic or
Well, and
whatever.
and that would be my big thing, is letting anyone do your thinking for you.
Yeah.
Like, weigh the options, do the research. What does this mean? I mean, let's be honest. The Native Americans were modifying food by crossbreeding crops and
Yep.
having them do that in a like natural genetic way.
Mm-hmm.
Is it so much different when we do it in a lab? I don't know, but we also don't necessarily know what all of what we're doing when we do that. There could
Yeah.
be things that are latent that we don't see or notice.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing is, for me, is like treating humanity like it's an experiment where we don't get to have a control.
Yeah.
It's like we just started, running experiments on everybody globally, and nobody gets to be like the guys that we don't run the experiment on. So how do you know what's because of the experiment and what's not? You never get that, which
Yeah.
makes your data kind of all useless in a strange way.
Yeah. You said something a minute ago, letting everybody else think for you. I think that's a big problem. We're the generation that you were talking about, our kids, um, are, not thinking. They're just taking these. It's almost like taking short clips off the internet or short clips off of television or whatever, and just going with that no matter what. It's very shallow. You agree with that?
Well, and I'm of two feelings on this because people take this and go both ways with it. I homeschooled my daughter because it seemed like the better option to me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not because I need to indoctrinate her into mine, but because I'm going to try and limit as much indoctrination, period. But
Yeah.
then we have people like the flat earthers who are
Yeah.
so dead set against listening to anyone and considering anyone an expert that they refuse to accept basic precepts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also a danger to me. It's like I'm not going to ever sit here and go, well, no one in authority deserves it and everything must be wrong, because then I'm making the same problem in the opposite direction. All we can do is look at what we know, get as much information as we can, and synthesize it. See what makes sense, And guess what? We may not all agree, but what we'll probably find out in 50 years is that neither of us was 100% right.
Oh, for sure.
Like it's the idea of like resting on everything like it is, scientific law, when even scientific law changes over time.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a frustration.
So you homeschooled your daughter, and did you do a lot of research in the public schools around you and decided it just wasn't the route to go, or what made you make that decision?
My wife is a first generation homeschooler. She was homeschooled by her parent, her mom,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, what it really boiled down to was I remembered how much school made me hate reading.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, I did well in school. I went
Mm-hmm.
through college. I got a degree because it's just what you do after high school. And I remember when I was 10 how much I loved to just go out buy books.
No worries.
But you go and read books. And then I remembered how you couldn't have paid me to read books in high school. And it took me kind of like rediscovering a passion for learning in college.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that made that happen was just the way that school was. Like everything at school was a problem. I remember my eighth grade English teacher turning my eighth grade English class into a Holocaust education class. All we did
Oh,
was read books about the Holocaust. And while it's a terrible thing, like, is that really what my eighth grade English class is for? We're reading about it in history class already. Like, do we just need more Holocaust propaganda?
yeah, yeah.
um, so it was just memories like that. And I never wanted my kid to hate learning. I never wanted her to resent being told to learn things. So it's
Yeah.
like, you do yours. And I've lived with the explicit rule that when people stop telling me how smart my kid is, I'll consider putting her back in school.
Right. Right. Yeah. Me and my wife, we go back and forth and about where our kid's going to go to school. He's only 2 right now, so we got a little bit of time. It's you know Public school is something that there's obviously benefits to. I think socialization is important. I'm definitely an extroverted person. My wife is a little bit introverted, but I think the opposition to being homeschool is, hey, let me, you're gonna go out into the world and have to deal with people on a daily basis. Let's get you started there. But at
As a
the same
homeschool
time,
propagandist,
go ahead.
you know what I remember about school? Shut
What's
up and
that?
sit down.
Yeah.
That's the socialization I got in school. You know what my daughter gets to do? My daughter gets to go to the library, go to the science museum
Hmm.
with the other kids in the collective. The other families that want to homeschool. And
I,
and guess what? When she
I
goes out, she doesn't talk to kids her own age. She talks to adults. So the
hmm
idea of her not being able to converse with people is frankly ludicrous. She's super outgoing.
sure.
Like most of my like I'm not an extrovert. I am very much an introvert. And most of what made me that way was just feeling like crap because of all the cool kids at school. Like it was the
Mm-hmm.
idea of like people that aren't mature enough to be wealthy flaunting their wealth around you, things like that. And it's
Hmm.
like you internalize that at a young age, and it makes it difficult to ever feel like you're a valuable person. Because, I mean, to be honest, in my 30s, I'm still undoing the damage of internalizing the lessons from middle school, you know?
Yeah, so that's interesting because I also feel, and I went to a crap school. My public school was terrible. I won't call them out, but it's not a good one. It's still to this day not a good one. But I remember, I think back and I can't remember what documentary I was watching not too long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Uh, maybe I'll remember it later. But he basically said, yeah, public school will make you an employee. That's what they're teaching you to be is an employee, which
Supposed to do. That's what it's supposed to do. It was literally to turn the, well, my immigrant ancestors, the Irish and the Italians, and make them stop drinking on the
hmm
job.
hmm
Literally why it was brought about. We need these people to show up not drunk and build this
right,
crap for us in the Gilded Age.
right. Oh wow.
If you want to,
Mm.
if you want to know a real good excuse for sending your kid to public school, and this is the one that I'll accept from anyone, be having two full incomes, because
hmm
it gets really, really frustrating sometimes. Like my wife works third shift for UPS,
hmm
and that's how we kind of make ends meet.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just like, God, we could just send her to public school. You can get like a full time regular job, and then all of her money problems are over.
hmm
But then I get upset thinking, man, it's weird the system is structured in such a way that it'd make you have to do that, to make you
Yeah.
have to send your kid away for 8 hours a day, to not be around you, to not have that time when they actually want to be around you,
hmm
have it be an option. So it's an awful frustrating thing. That being said, anyone who says they can't afford it and that it would be difficult, that one I can get.
hmm
Outside of that, the value of public schools, I mean, like one point in time, like, so my kid can be raped or taught to hate herself. Neither of those things looks good to me.
Right.
I'd rather, and on top of that, like, when we first had the kid, if you want to send them to like daycare when they're younger, daycare is the worst one. You want to bite that bullet. Look at how much daycare costs, and then look at what your income is going to be,
hmm
and it's going to be entirely one of your incomes. So it's like you might as well stay home with the kid and not work because it's going to cost you as much as the does. You're going to net nothing, but a
hmm
lot less time with your kid.
Hmm.
So
Interesting. Let's stay here for a second. So
okay,
so let's try to think of some positives of public school. We got the negatives, and honestly, I agree with all the negatives that you've said so far. So what are the positives of going to public school? Give me a couple if you can.
um, it's easy, and I think that is a big one for people, is
hmm
that they don't have to think about it.
hmm
It's just like, hey, we've got options and opportunities here. Now, while I say that, I think that those become less and less every day. You find you have less extracurriculars, less band, less arts, and things like that. I was lucky. I went to a very good rural school in upstate New York
hmm
that, my senior year, I was able to do independent studies in art.
Oh,
So like, I explained to my teacher how, hey, this one project that I just want to work on all year because I want to work on it all year. Can you give me credit for that? Sure.
that's not bad.
Like if you I mean, for me, like that's really what it boils down to in the positives. And probably because I've just been so outside of that system for so long, like I don't see what it could offer me that I can't go. Like, what, field trips? I take my kid to field trips all the time. Like, I can go to any museum I want in Cleveland. I can do them every day if I want to.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I'd say maybe it makes it easier to make friends, but that's kind of, what are you classifying as a friend at that age?
Very
And I
true.
remember picking
I
up
got.
enemies
Yeah.
just as easily.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Okay, so um, so you're naming off a couple of things here that are hard things. Um, Making friends and keeping them, which I have almost zero of the friends I had in high school. Um,
Yeah.
same with the enemies, though. I'll say that I
Yeah.
don't know any of them either. That's a hard relationship thing to do. It's a hard thing to get past some of the crap that you're going to learn from teachers that are trying to put their own prerogative or their own, like your Holocaust English teacher. Like she should have been teaching English and maybe, different, whatever English class is supposed to entail, yet everything's based on the Holocaust. Well, that's probably because that's what's in her mind and that's what she wants everybody to, she thinks she's doing a good thing. So that's her prerogative. Um, and then you also mentioned, uh, uh, maybe not being a part of the popular kids, which
Well,
I have both. I was definitely in my freshman year of high school. I hadn't hit puberty yet, and I would consider myself bullied, but I did have one ace in the hole, if you will. I was a pretty good baseball player, so
mhm.
I did end up getting to be at that social hierarchy, not at the top, but move through it a little bit. My
Well,
point of me.
and
Go ahead.
while I talk about like having all this angst and crap in me,
Hmm.
I was still voted most unique as a superlative in high school. It's not like I wasn't an unpopular person. Like it's just a
Okay,
nature
so
of like,
that's
so even when
that's
you
why I
are the
was
popular kid, you still get all the baggage. Like if you
okay.
really look at it, I want you to tell me right now, how many people do you know that don't in some way feel like they're not doing as good in life as they could be? And
How
let's
many?
take that and like say anyone who's ever looked at Instagram doesn't feel crappy about how they're doing in life.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
I
everybody does,
agree.
no matter how good you're doing, you're always not doing as good as you could think you should be.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not sure that's a terrible thing. I think the Instagram stuff is, hey, I want everybody to believe that I'm doing great, which I still haven't unboxed that yet. I have social media. I don't post very much. I used to more. It's just not my thing, really. I can't find the value in it personally. But
The less you use it, the more happy with it you are. I'll tell you that much.
well,
I think the social media I use the most anymore is LinkedIn,
yeah,
and
LinkedIn is not a bad one for sure, especially if you hire people. If you're a business owner or manager or
yeah,
something. So hey, the reason why I brought up all those things though is because you you don't believe that there was a lot of value that was brought to you by exposing you to all those hard things, all those hard relationships, all those hard you know uh, things that you don't like about public school.
I mean, I guess my point is, I don't think that that's the only way you come across some of them. And
Mm,
I guess, maybe my kid would get some value out of me throwing rocks at her too.
sure.
Maybe, but maybe we don't need to do that either. Like,
Yeah.
is just because something's hard really mean it imparts value? And that's something I think you have to face. Like, I think that because of how interconnected our world is, inevitably she's going to have to deal with people.
Hmm.
But is she going to be more emotionally mature and able to deal with that when she's not had to deal with all the angst and baggage that like the rest of us have? And maybe I'm
Well,
wrong. I'm not. But that being said, I feel like we should be able to test that experiment, not throw
oh
everyone
yeah.
into the same meat grinder, and not know what that the opposite is.
No, no, no. This is a good dialogue though because here's another thing. I've had the same thoughts. I've not told my wife or I've suggested, hey, if we homeschool him, couldn't we get the social value that he might get by going to public school through extracurricular activities like baseball, piano class, dance class, all those things? Don't you think it would be just as valuable? And we don't know.
Um,
We came to the answer of we don't know.
what I will say is you're in one of the best states for that.
Mm,
Like the options in Texas, especially in the particular area of Texas that you're in,
mm-hmm.
for homeschooling people is wild.
Yeah.
Like when we were like up here, things got really weird in the past 2 years. Like basically you had the hard left-right divide that happened within the homeschool community.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like that was as bad in Texas when we go down there to visit. But I talked to
Yeah.
like the parents in the, like down there that do it, and it's like, good lord, I wish I had so much to do.
Mm. Yeah, Texas is. I'm very thankful to live in Texas. I tell my family all the time, Texas is the only cult I'm a part of, and then it's the only one because it's a great place. Just like you said, lots of extracurriculars, lots of things to do. Weather is really good most of the year, except
Well,
for
see,
right
that's the
now.
one. That's the thing I'd have to argue with you about because I
Oh,
like
the
it
heat.
cold. I like it cold. I keep trying to
Yeah,
talk the wife into moving to like New Hampshire or Alaska or something.
New
My
Hampshire.
wife's actually from Texas way back, so we
What part
have
of
that.
Texas is she from?
Want to say she actually was from, oh god, Fort Worth is where she's actually out of.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
That's where I'm at.
She's like she keeps telling me she wants to take me back to the stockyards one of these years, and I'm like, oh, sure.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the stockyards. Obviously, it's it's cool. I mean, it's a big piece of history.
She
It's
and,
where
and
the
and
West
that's
begins.
and that's kind of like her idea of the stockyards is also from like when she was like 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's
So
probably a little bit different now. The
yeah.
city's built around the
Well,
stockyards.
and I think I had one of my friends from back in the day. He actually was a bartender somewhere down there, and
Yeah,
he had a very different remembrance of the stockyards than she did. So
yeah. There's a lot of fights that happen at the bars in the stockyards for sure.
nice.
For sure, yeah. So, I wanted to ask you, do you feel like we have a victim culture in America?
I think people. I think that there are people that would like us to have a victim culture. I don't think that we're mostly bought in. Even I think some of the loudest people think that we have it and they find value in it. What I can say is like specifically like for my daughter. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it would be real easy to say, look, your life is going to be tough with you because you're black, and people are going to be worse on you because you're black.
Mm-hmm.
But does that have any value to her and me telling her that?
None. It really
Like
doesn't.
for me, it's like, yeah, people might look at you, but they're stupid. There's probably not going to be that many of them. And no matter what, like there's going to be people that dislike you for all kinds of reasons. That one's not any more special to me than any other reason.
Yeah.
So you go out, you try your hardest, and if you succeed or fail on your own merits, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Man, I don't claim to be an expert at anything, but man, I really do believe that's the strategy right there. Is try to give them discipline, try to give them love that no matter what you're going to love them,
Hmm.
and try your best to build a strong character in that little human that you're making,
Hmm.
and that's what I've learned so far from all the podcast guests and all the reading that I've done. If you teach them to be a victim, their life is going to be miserable for a long time, forever. Maybe they'll have to grow themselves out
Well,
of it.
it's all like all that crap that I was talking about, feeling like the emotional pain from like being in middle school and high school and all that. It's like you're just setting up to wallow in that forever, and that
Mm-hmm.
never served me of any value. All the crap that baggage that I carried around. Look, just believe that you can do things and try to do things. If you
Yeah,
fail, it's because sometimes things are just hard.
yeah, yeah. Things are hard, and like I was trying to make a point, I guess, is exposure to hard things is I think it's necessary because if you
Well,
don't, then when it does happen to you, you get beat down by it.
and I think there are plenty of ways to do that. So, like, I was a cross country runner in
Mm-hmm.
college and high school,
Mm-hmm.
despite looking like I do now. And what was funny is my joke. My coach always said there's two people that were good at cross country runners, running, and it was people that are really smart and can talk themselves out of the pain, or
Mm-hmm.
people who are too dumb to realize they're in pain.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to decide which one of those you are.
That is such a great analogy. Golf, I play golf. Same thing. Phil Mickelson says, hey, you can be a super smart golfer or a super smart guy and be good at golf. You'll know all the analytics. You'll
Hmm.
understand, yardages. You'll understand swing paths and striking stuff, and you can analyze all that and be great at golf, right? But you can also be a dummy and not think about any of it and
So
be
say you
just
could have a
so
600-yard drive and equalize a lot of things.
right. Exactly. Exactly. So I think your running coach was exactly right. You can be real smart about it, real, articulate or whatever you want to say about it, but you can also be just, you know,
But
uh,
I guess, I guess where I was getting at. So it's like you can have tons of hard things you can do. Like there's always
mhm,
sports. I'm a musician. Like go out and play music, learn how to do things, and if you want to do them well and you want to get better at them, hard is just part of what's going to happen. Like
mhm,
it's just the natural progression of doing anything long enough. If you play guitar in your house, eventually you're going to want to go play in front of people. And if
mhm,
you play in front of people long enough, you're eventually going to want to go make money playing in front of people.
mhm.
And each step up is another level of difficulty that you either have to decide you want to do or not do. And you can't
Yeah.
really know any better until you're there.
So you said you're a musician. Does your daughter play any music? Does she play any instruments?
Not yet. She does like to sing. She likes to dance. I don't think she's decided quite yet exactly what she wants to do, and that's not a problem for me. Like I've always
Yeah.
sang, much like she does.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pick up my first instrument. Like I played saxophone in the band in school, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't pick up guitar or bass until I was going to college.
Mm-hmm.
And now like during the summers I'll go out and play the bars downtown and make money doing covers and stuff like that. So it's like I didn't even pick it up until I was in high school, and I still managed to be a professional about it.
Yeah, that's cool. My dad, he sings in the choir at church, and I like to sing a little bit terribly, but I like to try. And I've noticed that my son is starting to, pick up the end of lyrics of songs and starts projecting out a little bit. He's 26 months old, a little over 2 years old, and it's like, oh wow. So the other day, I was watching a video of Travis Barker on my phone, and he just called out drums, drums. I'm like, yeah, that's the drums. That's exactly right.
Well, and if
So
you're
I
going
got
to
him
teach
some
him to be a
drumsticks.
musician, that's the one to
Yeah,
start with, because I can tell you right now, I've never had enough drummers for all the things I wanted to do musically.
really
It's the most sought after thing. It's the most sought after position for musicians.
interesting.
Like
Interesting.
there's always plenty of people that want to sing, plenty of people to play guitar, but finding a drummer is really hard, especially ones that good. So you start them
Huh.
early enough and get them good, he'll never
Yeah.
want for anything in his life.
Interesting. When I can remember in like probably fourth or fifth grade, the middle school band teacher came and you know how they do little tests to see if you're musically inclined or whatever. I can remember that.
I'll take your word for
No,
it. It's been a long time.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I can remember him trying to. He was talking me in or trying to talk me into playing percussion, playing the drums and
Hmm.
stuff. And I was already so, like I said, semi-bullied or whatever you want to say. I was
Hmm.
like, no, I'm not joining the band. Are you kidding me? That's another target that could be on me being in the band. And I wish that was one regret that I had from public school was, man, I should have just went in there and done it because it would have been a very valuable now.
Well, what's funny about that is the way you talk about them, like all the popular kids were in band and chorus in my school.
Oh, really?
Like, yeah. Which is why
Wow.
I became friends with all of that type of people, because
Yeah.
I was always into music, and so like I was in pop choir, and I did a band up until like I decided I want to do more with art than I
Yeah.
did with band. I liked singing more than I liked paying attention to my saxophone. We'll say that.
Yeah. 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 That's fun. How old are you, Nikki?
I am 38, I think now.
38. So I'm 33, and I would say the South or Texas probably moves slower or differently as far as what's popular, what's not
Well, see, and I would
popular.
think because you guys do like the drum corps thing, like bands would be even more popular down there.
It's
Isn't it
not
just
that they're.
drumline everything?
I think that's Georgia.
Just Georgia,
Atlanta only. Just
just
Atlanta.
Atlanta.
They they're the best drum lines, and that's just where they. I
Man,
don't know
Nick
if that's true
Cannon
or not.
painted a weird picture of the country for me, I guess.
Well, was Nick Cannon? I thought Nick Cannon was in Atlanta, Georgia, for that movie
I
Drumline.
guess I just think of the South as being one big thing. Like there's the South and Florida. I guess I didn't think of Georgia as being different.
Oh, Georgia and Florida are quite different.
I know Florida is. I'm technically, I'm from Florida. Like I was
Oh,
born there and I lived most of my life upstate, but we'd go visit family down there. And yes, Florida is its own thing. There's a reason Florida man is a meme.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Florida is honestly, it's kind of similar to Texas. I would say we're different than other southern states too.
Okay.
Uh, we, like I said, we have this love for Texas, and I think Florida has the same thing. You know, their people have the same thing for
Mm-hmm.
Florida. Uh, this arrogance, Texas is better than every. We do. It's bad, and I don't know if it's a why or how it happened, but
Well,
Texas
I mean,
people, we love Texas.
if nothing else, on paper, you're the only state that like legally does not have to put up with shit. So
Oh, being
it's in
able
your
to
charter.
secede.
You can leave whenever you want. So I mean,
Yeah,
that's gonna do something special for you.
yeah, yeah. That's crazy. So, all right, what else you want to talk about, Nikki?
We can
This is
go
this is you, man.
wherever
You're doing
we
great.
we
What do
can
you want
go
to talk
where.
about?
Well, I mean, 8 years of talking on a microphone, and he'll learn how to do it.
Heck
Well,
yeah.
the danger in that is then it gets very. I start asking questions, and that becomes its own weirdness.
Shoot for it. Let's try. Give me a couple questions.
Well, let's I don't know if you've covered this in the year, but so what do you do? What is your thing?
Mm. Are you talking about the dad hat or me as a person?
Well, you can take that question however you want to take it. What's the thing you want to talk about? In fact, what is the thing that you want to talk about so much that you started a podcast about it?
Hmm. A lot of it was I don't want to. I hate saying current events, but I call it modernity because I feel like the life that we live, the place that we're at in the world and in America right now is so different than any other time that I wanted to hear everybody's take on it. I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to understand because there's 330 million different takes of America, of what's
Mm-hmm.
happening in America right now. So I was like, well, I could put a small dent in it at least. Let's give it a shot. So that's kind of where my want for it was. Another thing that I wanted to do, or that I fantasized about was interviewing like the fathers of very successful people. That is something that I hope to do on this podcast at some
Mm-hmm.
point in time. Is who is the father of Elon Musk, or who is the father of uh, Phil Mickelson or Tiger Woods. Well, Tiger's Earl passed away, so that's not going to happen.
I was
But
gonna say, like at a certain point, don't they have to eat their fathers? Isn't that how lizards work? They're very successful people.
all right,
I
all
kid.
right. No, no. Okay, so I don't know. Is that what happens? Do they eat their fathers? Is that
I
kind
mean,
of how it
the one
works?
you'd really want to talk to is Elon Musk's dad.
Yeah. It's,
I can't even think what that guy would be.
well, I know
Why did you
that.
let your kid date Grimes? That's all I really want to ask him.
Oh man, I think Elon passed him up so long ago that his father knows not to say anything. Ask him anything. What? I mean, what are you going to ask him? Your son is. I don't think his dad. I mean, I wish I knew. I should look it up, but I don't think his dad was uber successful. I think that he was. I think part of the reason why Elon is so successful is he's on the spectrum, right? He's autistic, right?
I mean, in the same way I'm on the spectrum, sure.
Okay. Is that a? Can I say that? Is that offensive thing to say on the spectrum? As far
I
as being, I guess I can say whatever
to
I want.
some
Can I?
people maybe like just all you have to do is own what you say.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think both me and my wife are Aspies with Asperger's.
So
She
that
definitely.
well, Elon. That's what Elon has as well, or is,
Mhm.
and I think
There's a lot of famous people with it. For the record,
really.
one of my favorites
Tell
is
me,
Dan Aykroyd.
no way.
Hmm.
So tell me a little bit about Asperger's then, because I have this wrong idea about it. Because I've only known personally two people.
Well, the thing is it depends with anything. Like I guess how it manifests and stuff like that. Like the way that my wife has it is not near as bad as her brother. Her brother is basically all he wants to do is sit and play video games and draw cartoons, and like has
Mm,
just straight up no interest in other people. Whereas, like with me and my wife, we have difficulty sometimes connecting with other
mm-hmm,
people. Now, she has a more difficult time with it because I would have to say to people is because as a musician, I've had to learn how to fake being personable, I guess. Like,
mm-hmm.
most people, I think, would assume I'm an extrovert, but I am absolutely
I would.
not. I put on the airs really good, and then I go and I'm just gonna hide in my cave here for a couple hours and relax and chill.
2 days later, you come out.
Ready to meet some more people there.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
okay.
but I guess it's more, learning the tools of how to deal with things. Like she would, if you really want to talk to someone about Asperger's, she'd be more of an expert than I ever would be. Like for me, like I think that I am a little bit, but not in such a manner that it really affects my life.
Hmm.
Like I think I have panic attacks like in weird moments, like if I have to go into unnatural situations or with a lot of new people, things like that really trigger me.
Yeah.
But I'm also not sitting at home drawing cartoons and playing video games all day every day at 40 years old.
All
So
right.
it hasn't limited my life in that way.
So how does it contribute to, the extraordinary? Like Elon is, he
Focus.
when you oh, it's focus.
When, like with her brother, like there is nothing outside of that stuff that he can like. Where you or me, like who's not that bad, we'll have things that can come in and like gather our attention and kind of, oh, here, come look at this shiny thing.
Wow.
When people like that, and if they choose, like Elon, he read a lot of books and just kept reading books and kept reading books. And because that's what he wanted to do, there was nothing that was going to derail him from doing that and learning more. Now, like I said, in the case of my brother-in-law who just wants to play video games, it's not
Yeah.
as useful, I guess, as say going and reading every book in the world.
Sure.
But like it's the focus thing. It's just locking into and being able to just only care about this one thing.
Mm.
But there is also the drawbacks to only caring about that one thing. And that like you want to talk about having difficulty building personal relationships.
Yeah.
Well, when you only care about that, like, and you'll kind of get that feeling, like if
Yeah.
you're say talk to my brother-in-law.
I gotcha. That's wild. So I wonder how Dan Aykroyd and his great ability to focus, how that turned him into a comedian. I wonder what that story was like.
Well,
I
what's
wonder.
interesting with him is that you think of Dan Aykroyd as a comedian, and I do to
Hmm.
agree, but I also think of him as a dude who has hosted an aliens podcast or like an aliens radio show for I think 20 some years, and who's like really obsessed with blues music.
Yeah,
Like those are the
which
things that
which
I
was
think about.
hilarious in my opinion to begin. I was like, "What is this?" Right?
Yeah, it's
I
like
thought it was funny.
the Blues Brothers was a thing for a reason because he genuinely loves blues music, and it's one of those things like you hear him talk about that, or you hear him talk about like extraterrestrials, and you're all of a sudden you're on another planet. It just happens to be that like he went and learned how to do funny when he was doing all that. But how much of that is like what is the funniest Dan Aykroyd stuff? Well, without question, it's the Ghostbusters where he's talking about ghosts and goblins, or it's him in Coneheads where he's playing an alien,
Yeah, for
or
sure.
even better when he's playing a bluesman in the Blues Brothers. It's the stuff that you can feel the connection, like just really understood it. That's like
Yeah,
to me, that's what it really sells as.
yeah, yeah. I can. I can. I can get on that train. I think that's probably very close to correct. Man, Dan Aykroyd, huh? What's another one? You got another
Oh
one?
God, who's? I used to have a laundry list of them. They're people you know, people you'd never expect. Um, I want to call my wife and say, Liz, who's on the list?
What's
Um,
on the list, Liz?
honestly, what you should do, honestly, go and look up a list of like favorite people, famous people with Asperger's,
Yeah,
and
I'll take a look.
it's also a lot longer of a list than you'd think it would be.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
think, especially when you start getting to historical people,
Mm-hmm.
like because then you kind of getting into speculation because it didn't exist way back then. Like you're looking at people in the 1800s with it.
Yeah,
It wasn't a diagnosis.
yeah. Nikki, earlier I'm gonna take us off into a new direction here. You called
Okay.
yourself a libertarian. What does
Okay.
that mean?
Um, I mean, it's a lot of things to a lot of different people. I think back in like the late 90s, No Effects was calling themselves libertarian. And I think for most people, it's about the primacy of being able to do what you want.
Mm,
Now, I am a firm believer. Like, I started out, I guess first person, I classify myself as an anarchist. I was reading Noam Chomsky in college, and that was kind of like really got me focusing on the idea of freedom.
mm-hmm.
However, I kind of would say I discovered economics and realized that like no way would the Noam Chomsky and leftist way of approaching freedom garner the results that it wants to. It's
Mm-hmm.
always going to end up doing the opposite, which is a frustration because it kind of requires you to naturally disagree with your heart on some things. But for me, it's about understanding the cross section between autonomy and responsibility. And then they say, um, the old Superman adage, with great power comes great responsibility, and that thing. And realizing that if you want to have power in your own life, it's going to require a lot of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a frustration because I don't expect everyone to be libertarians. But the issue becomes when I'm willing to take responsibility for my life, but the system is set up in such a way as to not allow that. Because the
Mm-hmm.
bottom line is most people do not want to take responsibility for their own lives.
Sure.
Um, the reason governments exist at all is because people don't want to have to deal with crap. They'd rather it was somebody else's problem. I would rather have options than have people, I guess, steal my money and tell me how I have to live my life. And I'm
Yeah.
willing to go as far away and out of the way as I need to do that.
Yeah.
But it would seem that some people feel that I need to play in their system whether I want to or not. And it's a frustration for me. So,
Yeah. I'm out. I'm out on that too. We have. I would have called myself a libertarian for uh, many years. That's why I asked.
yeah.
Um, now I like to. I don't know.
A
What do they
lot of
say?
people
Independent now.
a lot of people distance themselves from it because like what's more important to a lot of people is their quote unquote left right paradigm, whether or
Mm,
not they're a conservative or a liberal, I guess.
mm-hmm.
um I I'm a bisexual man in a multiracial relationship. I'm
Mm-hmm.
into art and weird stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm as socially left, I think, as you could possibly be. Is you're not hurting anybody. I really don't care what you do. To each
Yeah.
their own.
Yeah.
But I also understand the responsibility aspect of not everyone can live their life to have a thriving civilization, and so I would rather have some people kind of. I tend to think that you're going to get a better society out of the conservatives than you will if everyone is a stark raving liberal, I guess.
That's so wild. That's almost exactly like the path. I wouldn't have called myself an anarchist, but I did hate that we were policing the world.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear all the stories of us, even Desert Storm and all,
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam, and you can hear all of those, right? I'm just like, why are we even doing that?
Well,
Why is that even a? So I'm
the,
like, let's stop being that way, right? And
the
then,
joke I always tell people is like, while I hang out with probably more conservative minded people these days, I've only ever
mm,
voted for um one president, and he was a Green Party. I voted for Ralph
mm,
Nader. It's the only president I've ever voted for. I've never voted for a Democrat or a Republican. I went,
yeah,
the straight up commies. That's who I
mm,
voted for when I did vote.
yeah,
And for me now, it's like the people that my real transition was away from, I guess, like libertarian politics into homesteading.
mm,
I'm really into my garden. Like I have a bunch of let's say airport luggage in my backyard that I've turned into raised beds. Because
mm,
we rent here and I don't want to spend all my money amending soil for somebody else.
right,
So built a raised bed that I can zip up and throw in a U-Haul when I want to go. I spend time. We're working on the getting ducks,
mm,
things like that. Where like the worst case happens, I've got something here, and people will joke about the homesteader prepper types. Oh, you guys are crazy. Well, maybe. But if
yeah,
you look at the price of eggs right now, all my homesteader buddies who haven't paid for eggs in years are
mm,
seeming like the real geniuses.
yeah. Well, and not to mention, are we just going to leave behind, the ability to be self-sustaining at all,
Well,
like 99% of people, if we took away grocery stores and gas stations and stuff like that, they would be, I mean,
it's a lot of problems.
death, a lot of
Well,
death.
and this is like one of my frustrations. So, like, I classify myself as a leftist, and I still believe I'm a leftist because I'm anti-war. I'm obsessed with the environment.
Hmm.
The problem is that when you look at the people who are telling you about the environment now, they're all the same multinational corporations that I was railing against. Basically all the pharmaceutical corporations are the one that decide environmental policy now.
Yeah.
Why am I all of a sudden being told I have to trust Bayer, the people that
Yeah.
created Agent Orange?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't sit well with me. You know,
Mm.
discovered permaculture, and it's like you people are. I'm looking at I'm looking at things that are going on in like Sri Lanka and was it the Netherlands,
Hmm.
and things that are going to have horrible repercussions and many dead people because of the agricultural decisions that people are making. I'm looking at the whole idea that they want people to not eat meat anymore, and the how detached that is from how an ecosystem works. Like
Yeah.
to think of not having meat as being part of the ecosystem in the way that it needs to be, and it's always struck me is that like the people that really go into environmentalist in like the academic sense are
Hmm.
people that have never lived in the woods. It's always
Yeah.
people from the cities, and it's like I'm sorry
50-year-old white women. Sorry. Sorry.
well if you've never paid attention to how like overhunting a population of deer affects a forest.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how you have anything to do with environmental policy
Yeah.
because it's subtle things and you have to be able to understand and like really pay attention to. Um, ugh. So don't get me on my
Sometimes,
soapbox, man.
well, sometimes I really do think that the people that are, voicing their opinion about environmentalism are, I think they have a lot of pent up guilt. I don't know what they feel guilty about, but it seems like, well, I've been on this Nietzsche kick. We spoke before the
Well,
podcast about
have you ever watched an episode of Captain Planet? I'll tell you what they feel guilty about.
Captain Planet. No, I
Yes.
haven't.
It was a cartoon Ted Turner put out when I was a kid. It was fairly entertaining, but man, it is
Oh,
straight up environmental propaganda. And like,
oh, it is.
oh my god, it's so over the top. Like, it was the first episode, and they had like big name actors in the show. Is what's wild. But it's like the first episode that's this evil hoggish Greedley, and he's like causing an environmental disaster with all the oil he pumps out of the ground, and now he's spraying people with oil like to fight us. And it's like, first off, no oil company wants to lose a drop because it's not
Yeah.
profitable. They're not like
Yeah.
no, they'll find something else to shoot you with. It ain't gonna be the oil. Like they're
Mhm.
gonna clean up it as good as they can because That's money. No one wants to lose the money. The
Yeah.
best thing you have going for you and wanting to help the environment is that they don't want to lose money.
Mm-hmm.
But, Hoggish Greedley, he was a pig man. That's really
Oh.
funny. Sorry, I cut
Interesting.
you off. It was just ridiculous.
What's it called one more time? Planet what?
Captain Planet.
Oh, Captain Planet. I'll look it up. That's
Well,
funny.
and it's such a big part of the culture for people my age. Like even Rick and Morty did a spoof on it. Like it made it into an episode there where like Morty fell in love with like the Captain Planet alternative. It was a girl in that particular one, and she killed a lot of people over the environment. It was.
I can do some Rick and Morty for sure.
It used to be good.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna be good now that Justin Roiland's gone. So they've had their last season as far as I think most people are concerned.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I haven't paid attention in the last couple of years.
In the past,
I've seen a lot of good episodes though.
In the past week or two, it came out that like there's some court case with Justin Roiland saying he abused his ex-girlfriend, and Adult Swim just outright fired him. Whether or not that's true, like you can't fire. They're talking about recasting the voice of Rick and Morty in the TV show, and I hate to break it to them, that's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
Like the sauce isn't going to be the same, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I forgot where I was at, but I was bringing up Nietzsche, and I feel like well, first off, let me give you this idea. I feel like the left wing loves to look through the lens of the collective, the group, lots of people, and I feel like the right wing likes to look through the lens of the individual, one person. Is that right or wrong?
Well,
or
I'm so against this idea of left and right, because you say that until like you go look at the hardcore Christians and then they'll talk, and they're, by the way, the Christian people are just as happy to force us to live the Christian way. Because I remember back in George Bush era and the theocracy they wanted to create. The leftists just were better at it than they were. But there's also amount of understanding, like even when you use the word libertarian, what does that mean to different people? Like when you say anarchist, what does that mean to people? Like you say anarchist, most people think Antifa types, whereas all the anarchists I know are hardcore Orthodox Christian button up shirt guys. Like so
that's what I know too. Those are the guys that like they hate the government more than I mean.
And the people I like are the no king but Christ people.
I don't know that one.
Well, it's a motto that you have against like hardcore anarchist Christians, whereas like the only person who tells me how to live my life is God, and that's how they live. So like governments, it's all unjust authority. The only person who can tell me what to do is the Almighty. And I tend to like those people a lot. I'm an atheist, but I still like those people a lot.
So Nietzsche would say Christianity is the reason why what is the cause of what he calls slave morality. Are you familiar with that term, slave morality?
I can tell where he's going with it.
Yeah, he's saying that the values that Christianity offers is humility, piety, meekness, weakness, if you will, and the gist of it is that that's not natural to man or men or women. That's not the natural way to live. It's
kind of funny he would say that, considering there's thousands upon tens of thousands of years of human beings having society structured that way before Nietzsche. But he didn't like it, so I mean, all that doesn't exist now.
Sure.
I mean, kind of like Karl Marx kind of had some things right, except for, everything other than the fact that, people get pissed off when other people like make money.
Yeah. Well,
you got that right.
Here's the thing. Nietzsche was like, it sounds to me, and don't get me wrong, I'm not an expert, but it sounds to me like he was an Old Testament guy versus a New Testament guy. The original sin and forgiveness for all because of Jesus is the reason why people are weak, and that weakness or that meekness, if you will, we'll call it being meek, is not natural to man, and therefore he builds resentment. and that resentment turns into hate for people that are more successful than them.
I
What he
think
calls
in the
master morality.
I think in his time period that makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, there are leaders and there are followers. That's always going to be the way that it is. And
Sure.
he was trying to create a new paradigm for leaders and followers. I don't think his paradigm worked out very well. I think ultimately trying to, especially at a mass movement level, having that many people give up belief,
Mm-hmm.
because ultimately, what I think replaced belief in a lot of ways is money. Like money, religion is what determines how you live your life and like what's important and how your values operate. Well, when you take some type of God or belief system, I don't care if it's Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, whatever, when you take
Mm-hmm.
that out of there, there's a vacuum. Something will move in there. And I think the
Sure.
easy thing to glom onto is say, well, you explain with money, the rich, the powerful. Like you start thinking in those terms. The problem with money, and if you've had any time amongst libertarians, they'll say is that, well, money is the most manipulated and unstable thing that could possibly ever exist. And how could you possibly think that you're going to have any stable structure if money is like the central idea between your belief system? Like
I
what's
gotta.
wealthy and
I'm
poor
not
from
sure
day to
about.
day is different.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. For sure. That volatility is real that you're talking about right now. Very true.
Like how do you
But
find a
I
true
don't
north in
know.
that world? I guess.
Oh. Well, I think I got to go back and say I'm not sure that everybody's going to replace religion with money. I'm not sure that
Oh,
that's
I don't think
what
everyone did.
happens.
I think largely a lot of people did that. I mean, people
Mm-hmm.
replace people replace with a lot of different things. That's just always what it seemed like. How people decided that they thought the world was organized, like because that's how I see religion from an anthropological perspective. It's how you organize the world around you. Did this happen because of God, or why did this happen? When you're answering like the big questions, and I think that it's easy for it happened because big corporations made it happen, or it happened that way because someone bribed someone, and that's the way that the world works. It's more of the concept of how does having money and not having money affect the world. I guess that's the
Mm-hmm.
way that I would like explain how I look at money taking over that role. It's like the having and the haves and haves nots have kind of become the central paradigm, which is a dangerous paradigm to focus on, frankly, because people can have and have not for all kinds of reasons. If you
Mm-hmm.
had the government go out and create a bunch of laws that keep people out of the business that you're in, by all means, you did not earn that. But to sit there and
Yeah.
look at everyone who has money as someone who didn't earn their money inherently is wildly inaccurate.
Right.
And
Well,
they're
but
go on.
that's what
Okay.
he's described. That's what he's described, or Nietzsche. That's what he's describing is these people, the have-nots, are saying, "Oh, our morality is what's important. Our sacrifice, our suffering, is what's important, and the reason why we suffer is because of all these people that are successful." And
Mhm.
don't get me wrong, successful people are shitheads too. You know what I mean? I get it. But do you see that happening, or am I just like
Well, I
misconstruing that?
personally, I don't necessarily think he's wrong in that,
Hmm.
but then I'll ask the question: is that a bad thing? Most people do not want control of their lives. Most people, you look at TikTok and you tell me how many 30-year-old people really have control of their lives and should have responsibility for their lives. Like I don't know that having
I don't know
someone
what you mean
focus
by
on
that.
piety.
Oh,
Well, I guess and this is where where I would have something to be with more in line with the conservative focus. There are a lot of people with some wild stories on TikTok about how badly they have fucked up their lives that they're
yeah,
now passing on to another generation.
yeah.
And well, I would kind of rather those people lived in a society where maybe they thought hellfire was coming down on them if they didn't raise their children right, because the
Ah,
outcome might be better off for society. It's the idea of when everyone moves away from the stability, then everything gets kind of crazy. You want to have people pushing the edges, but not the
uh,
whole society running away from it.
so you're putting a lot of weight in the functionality of religion. You're saying,
Like,
man, it's super. We need it because there's a lot of crazy, dumb mofo's out there.
well, once again, from an anthropological standpoint, something will take that place for everybody. You
Yeah,
know, go talk to self-help people that are really obsessed in the self-help world, and they
yeah,
have their slogans and their things that fit in there exactly the same. Like, talk
mm-hmm.
to like a brand new libertarian, and libertarianism usually takes the place of religion for a lot of the, say more leftist ones. You
Yeah,
know, just do what Ron Paul said, and you're doing what's right.
yeah,
For
yeah.
me, that's never the way I've been, but
Mm-hmm.
I see the value in there, and I see that I can see the frustration for a lot of people that, like, I understand Nietzsche's position, I guess, but I
Mm-hmm.
also, it's like when you talk to postmodernists and they're like, well, then nothing exists, nothing is real. I'm like, but if you start operating as if nothing is real, this thing that's been working for a long time, it's going to fall apart real quick.
Yeah. What does
And
postmodernist mean? I hear Jordan Peterson say all the time. I'm
well,
still don't have a good image in
and
my
we were
mind.
we were talking earlier about like phenomenology is how I know. Like, I read all Heidegger and all those people that would be the postmodernists.
Mm-hmm.
I, as a philosophy, it is super interesting, and in marketing, it gives you some serious things to think about in understanding like the people you're trying to reach.
Mm-hmm.
The basic precept is that you can never see the world outside of you. Like, you look at the world, everything that you look at it through the lens of your education, your background, your upbringing. You, even if you look at it, quote unquote, through somebody else's eyes,
Mm-hmm.
you're still looking at it from your interpretation of how somebody else sees things.
Yeah.
And a modern postmodernist will take that to mean, well, if that's the case, then there is nothing true. Everything is just what you see.
Yeah. My own perspective. That's all. And
Yeah, the only thing that is real is how I see things. But that's stupid because we do live in a physical world that operates somehow.
yeah.
Now, what I tell people is that's a big jump. You're skipping the part where just because I can't see it doesn't mean it isn't there.
Yeah.
And so it makes more sense to operate as if, what are the things that we can't agree on? And like kind of see like in the Rorschach that is all of our vision, what makes sense. Like, you can reach certain things from just people crowdsourcing their own concepts and go, well, we all kind of see this, so maybe that's something resembling truth. And even if you can never say it's truth, which you may never be able to say, doesn't mean that it couldn't be, and you can live life as if it were.
Mm.
Like, it's the real precept is just understanding that no one. The whole shortcut is, mind you, Derrida. Whew, man, his books are gigantic.
Mm.
It's just understanding that people see the world differently because they see the world from their own perspective.
Yeah.
They wrote these huge tomes belaboring that in every way imaginable. But that is really the core precept, is that we all see the world as we see it and not as somebody else sees it.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I understand. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm searching for value that I'm not. Don't get me wrong. To me, what you're explaining to me is a given. Like, yeah, of course we all see it as our own, but that doesn't eliminate truth. Like,
Well, exactly, and that's the way I personally feel about it. It's like, it's cool to understand, have that realization, that understanding. Like, wow, we do all see this differently and can't see it exactly like anyone else can. Like,
mm-hmm.
that's an important understanding. If you
Yeah,
go through life thinking that everyone believes and sees the world the way you do, you're gonna have a hard time.
right,
But
right,
to assume that jumps to, well, then the only reality is my reality, and I'm going to act as such. Well, that's
yeah,
that doesn't follow. You're making leaps in logic at that point.
yeah.
And
So,
I think that's actually misinterpretation of what those people were saying. I think that philosophy taken to that extreme works for certain political ends that people have who don't want us all agreeing on things. It's really funny how quickly they got rid of the whole Occupy movement and the what do you call it? It was the Occupy movement and the Tea Party movements.
yeah,
If those people ever realize that we all hate the bankers and they fought
yeah,
together,
yeah,
there's big problems for the people upstairs.
Yeah.
And so what do? You get them all bickering about dumb shit that don't mean anything.
Right.
Fight over race, fight over sexuality. Don't focus on us.
I mean, I guess, but they did do it. They occupied Wall Street for however long, and it didn't. I mean, to me, it didn't. I can't see a difference. You know, I mean,
Well, but that
well,
was the point. If you ever paid attention to the timeline when all the newspapers started really going in on the identity politics,
so you're saying this was
they that
infiltrated
was
by
that was how they broke
them?
up the movement. All the
Mm,
newspapers at one time started talking about identity politics. Tim Pool, like he'll tell you, like if you were down in there, the Occupy movement, like he was, overnight, you could just see how it happened. That all of a sudden, no one could agree and organize together. It all became compartments of, well, the black groups over here, and the white groups over here, and the Jewish groups over here, and the fourth and third wave feminist groups over here. And then no one was talking amongst each other. No one was focusing on the fact that the banks were robbing us all blind. They were
that
just
sounds like the
funneling
herd to
money up.
me. That sounds like a lot of people that want to complain about how there's winners and losers and point fingers at the winners, which I can't get behind that. That's the other thing.
Well,
I hear all these folks. Let's talk about the why I can't get behind victim mentality. That's what I call that. I mean that's how I see that.
well,
Is they're just complaining
there's a
about
difference between victim mentality and when I can show you exactly how you're being robbed blind by special favors being handed out by government. Like, you look back at what businesses were given free money because they were too big to fail. And
oh yeah.
your grandparents' 401k would have been eviscerated if they just let all these companies fail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you stole tax money from my grandkids to pay for that. And
Sure
the only
did.
people that really made out in it are
General
the
Motors
people that got
and
the dividend payouts.
yeah, yeah.
So like, and that's my frustration. Like, why
That's not
don't
a bad thing to be frustrated about, though. That is real. What you just, I mean, and it's a
but
travesty, but I'm not sure that
but
it's.
to a lot of right wingers, it looks like, oh, you're just bitching about the people that have worked hard to get money. I'm like, that's what they want
Yeah,
you thinking it is. It's not. Ultimately, there is a banking class, and it also tends to be. What is it? If you look at like, what are all the 9 most richest counties in America? Do you know where they are?
I'm guessing the Northeast is got.
No, they're all within 20 miles of DC.
Oh yeah. I didn't know that. I actually didn't
Yeah,
know that.
it's like all of the money in America is in
Yeah.
DC.
Did you know the easiest way to become a millionaire in America is in the financial industry? Which
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
can't get over that either. I'm like, I hear that stat. I'm like, why does that make me sick?
Well,
I can't.
it's because in your mind you understand that the old South Park joke. Yep, we'll put this here, we'll put that there, move that there, up, and it's gone. Because they're getting paid tons of money to lose money, and
Yeah.
when the project ultimately fails, you're the one holding the bag, not them.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, the value that they're bringing to society, in my opinion, is we know how to bet the best. We know where to, put this money to make more money. Or, if you're not producing anything or offering a service or offering a charity, then I don't think it should be. It's hard for me to want to be in the financial industry. You know what I mean? I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
I, I
Well,
couldn't find fulfillment in my
and you know
life
why
that
that
way.
is? Because you are a normal, good person, and don't want to do
Oh,
those things that you innately see as being inevitable to do that.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you inherently know there's something kind of icky about what those people do. What is
yeah.
it in the? If you ever watched the movie High Fidelity,
No.
it's a John Cusack movie from like the mid-90s. He plays a hitman, and he's talking to Minnie Driver about like what he did after high school. He's like, I went into government, and they noticed I had a certain moral flexibility, and that's how he became a hitman.
Oh,
Well, you look at it, it's like ultimately, if you had a certain moral flexibility,
yeah,
what would you do? Become a hitman or go to finance? Like you have to
yeah,
be able to talk yourself into believing something is good that may and maybe not.
yeah. That's an
But I'm
interesting
like,
thing that we just brought up. So I've been in the automotive business for a long time.
okay.
In Yeah, in the car business.
You finally
And
answered the question I asked, by the way, what business you're in.
yeah, yeah. Well, to be totally honest, I left the car business about a year and a half ago and
Okay.
started doing my own thing. But that being said, the car business is, well, first off, where I live is the biggest automotive market on the planet now, surpassed all the spots in
Interesting.
California. We sell more cars here than any other place on the planet.
Well, it's all those people in
Uh,
California just moved there, but
100%, 100%. But as you know, we had the chip shortage, the microchip shortage. I'm sure you're familiar
mm-hmm.
with, and obviously COVID. So manufacturing slowed down for a little while. It slowed down by 90%. It's back to 50%, 40% throttle now. But
well, that's why it still takes 3 months to have anything done to my Kia, though.
yes, very true. All that is exactly why, because
On my
people
on
can't
my
get
warranted
parts.
car, it was gonna, if anything was wrong with the engine, it was gonna be at least a month, bare minimum,
Hmm. Yeah,
and everybody's already loaned out all their loaners and paid for all the rental
yeah,
cars that are willing to pay for. So you're gonna have to buy the cost on that. I
yeah.
know because it happened to me.
Right, right. Well, that will fix itself. It will level out for
Well,
sure.
eventually,
But I'm not sure that the experience for the customer going to buy a vehicle will ever be the same. Uh, I don't think it
well,
will. When you would go buy a car, you'd go to a car lot and there'd be, in between 100 and 500 cars on that lot that you could
but
pick from.
that's also because they don't want you driving cars. Like
How
that's
do you
on
mean?
the list of things to go.
Oh
They're
gosh, I'm
bad for the
scared about
environment.
what.
I mean,
Oh.
so yeah, and they're moving to EVs, and really, you should be taking public transport. Look. The only thing that you can say about cars is the price continues to go up and up and up, and it's only going to continue to go up and up and up. How many people do you know that can really afford a car? Like,
It's not fair. I live in a great place. That's a problem. There's a lot
mm-hmm.
of our economy is good in DFW. Like it's hard for
Yeah,
me to.
there's
So
a lot of people
there's
there.
definitely, yeah, it's definitely,
That's also
we
why it
have the
takes
folks
2 hours to get to.
anywhere.
It's also why it takes 2 hours to get just down to what is it down there, Austin.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. From where I live, it'll take you 3.5 hours to get to Austin. Maybe a little bit less now because they have this highway. It's the 86, I think. It's a toll road,
Okay.
and the speed limit is 85 miles an hour. God bless Texas.
Oh, it's the beauty of it when you can drive 85, because I've been
Yeah.
I've driven down there, and it's like it's a parking lot even when you can drive 85 because there's too many damn people coming on and off. I will
Well,
say this:
86
Texas
isn't
is the
because it's
most
a paid road. You got to pay to be on
um
that road.
um Texas has been one of the more interesting places I've ever driven in. If I haven't said that,
Oh,
like Florida is great because there's so many
yeah.
highways, and they're just all
Yeah.
you drive the right type of day, and it's just open. Hey, I'm going to drive 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour, wherever I want to go because it's flat and
Yeah.
I can.
Yeah.
Texas has those erector set on ramps where all of a sudden I'm 100 feet in the air on top of this
Mixed
tower, and
masters.
I'm glad I can't see over the edge because I'm really afraid of heights, and that'd be scary as hell.
Yeah. Mixed
But it's
masters. That's what we call them.
I I see those things I'm like, God, am I going to be on that? Because I'm prepping myself to just be terrified.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, back to the car business for a second.
Go back.
One of my moral things that I always had a problem with is you realize selling cars, being a manager at a car dealership, doing finance at a car dealership. You realize that, oh man, we make the most profit off the people that have no idea what understand what they're doing. They see the car as a utility bill. Oh, I got to have this car.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be $400 a month, $500 a month, $200 a month, whatever it is, $800 a month.
Yeah.
Can I afford this utility bill? But in reality, people don't understand. You're buying a depreciating asset. You're buying an item, and it
Mm-hmm.
depreciates. And if you don't know any of that stuff, then you're the person that you know the dealership profits the most off of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me tell you how that's changing. Less cars means the price is the price. Like there's no
Yeah.
negotiation about the price anymore. And with interest rates at a high level,
Mm-hmm.
uh, not everybody's going to be buying a car, and there's no real negotiation with that either. Now it's just like,
Nope.
look, we we want to give you the best rate because we know that you can't afford.
Mm-hmm.
We have to abide by what you can afford. So it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of taken a little bit of the moral, conundrum for me
That's
because
the
I hate it.
morals you. That's the morals you have against car companies. I was gonna think it was all of the vehicles that we dump in the middle of deserts over in South Africa.
I don't even know. I didn't even know we did that. What do
Unsold
you mean?
vehicles. You've never seen the giant fields of unsold vehicles in other countries?
No. What do you mean? How does that happen? What do you mean?
No, I mean if
Enlighten me.
you don't sell last year's model, like you got to get rid of it so you have room for this year's model. There's only so much space to keep those vehicles today.
I may call bullshit on that. We sell every car.
Oh,
Is it?
this is not at the dealership level. This is at the
Oh, used car
manufacturer
level?
level. No, manufacturer level. So,
Oh.
like, say
Okay.
we made 1 million of these. We only sold 800,000. We don't have parking spaces for 200,000 cars we didn't sell. So you ship them to a desert, bury them, like put them right next to where you put all of the fiberglass. What do you call it? All of the fiberglass things for the windmills.
I'd be interested to see how often or how much that really happens. That's
I mean,
crazy.
let me pull up my. Okay.
Oh, there she is.
And you can find lots of pictures like this online.
What is that? Where is that?
I'm not entirely sure. See, this one's California desert facility,
Volkswagen.
already known for storing old airplanes.
Holy crap.
There's a lot of weirdness that goes into the industrialized world. So let my environmentalism cred never be impeached. Like
Oh
you can
my
call me a
god.
crazy right winger all they want, but that's the stuff I care about. Like I think that is a far more detriment than worrying about trying to say what the specific temperature of the planet is supposed to be.
Yes. Here's the other thing that I heard, and please tell me if I'm wrong. Um, I heard not too long ago that the rubber and the brake dust off of the cars near the highways is much worse for the air that we breathe
Air
than
quality, oh yes, in the
yeah,
cities is absolutely
really.
without question.
I,
Put it this way:
which makes
human beings are naturally acclimated to have carbon
right. That makes
because
sense to me.
it's what we naturally breathe out.
Yeah.
So anyone who tells you, I hate to say it, like once again, be conspiratorial, but the carbon they want to reduce,
Mm-hmm.
it's you. It always
Yeah.
comes back to that. Ultimately, especially if you look at the people that have all been promoting since the 70s the environmental movement,
Mm-hmm.
they will be very open that they believe the world needs to have less people on it. They don't pretend that that's not what they're after. Bill Gates himself, why is he so about vaccinations? Because it makes less people. Like people that are like all of the modern societies procreate less than like
Yeah.
you know a less industrialized societies,
Yes, they do.
and that's their goal. How they get there, they probably don't really care. But
I always wondered why, if this guy, Peter, who wrote that book, "The End of the World is Just the Beginning," I want, if you get the
I'm
opportunity to
absolutely
look
gonna look it up.
it, I just cannot figure out why nobody has been talking about this. All you hear is, "Oh my gosh, China's going to be a world power. They're going to take over the world." All this crap, and in all reality, they're going to age out in 10 years. They're not going to be able to take care of all the old people. They'll, 500 million
Mm-hmm.
old people they're going to have in 10 years. They're not going to have enough people at the working age. And we're worried about them taking over the world. why is that the narrative? I cannot figure out that at all.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, how aware are you of what the banning of nitrogen from fossil fuels has done in Sri Lanka?
I have no idea. You mentioned
Exactly
Sri
my
Lanka,
point.
not
Exactly my point. You have no idea, and it has completely destroyed their food system. They're going to be completely reliant on countries like us that have refused to do it so far. But it's a goal to do in every nation, everywhere.
mm,
Without nitrogen, our modern food system does
yeah.
not work, and that is entirely based on what do you call it? Oil at this point. Now, granted,
Mm-hmm.
I'm into permaculture. It's not the way we should be doing it. There's much better ways to do it, which include a lot of small farms incorporating animal and livestock growth and utilizing methods that we were doing 20,000 years ago. But you don't hear about that because that's not the way they want you to go. They want less people.
Who's they?
Um, it could be true believers. It could be people that just want to have less people on the planet. Mostly, it's the idea of, I would say, there are people in power that want to have less stress on resources so that they
Mm,
can have more control of resources.
mm-hmm.
And I think there are people that truly have high-minded ideals about what's proper for the world, certainly in academia and sciences. And maybe they're the worst and the hardest ones to deal with because it becomes religious for a lot of them. Now,
Interesting.
to point to anyone in particular, I mean, like, does Bill Gates buy his bullshit? Probably. So,
Mm,
and to think that it's not like when I say they, it's a certain degree to which there's a class of people that have the wealth to fight global problems.
mm.
Now, I would say fighting any problem at a global level is probably a bad way to do it. You need to fight it at the grassroots level with people. But that's because I don't believe in forcing other people to do things.
Right.
So,
I'm the same way. I think we got to work on the individual. We gotta try to create strong people, not try to control a group of people. I
mhm.
just that sounds awful to
Well,
me.
ultimately, it's the only thing it's ever going to do is breed resentment. Which is why, like,
Mm-hmm.
forcing race relations in the negative way that we do now, it's only going to breed resentment.
Slave
And
morality.
do you want to get more people fighting each other, or do you want people to get along?
Mm.
It kind of seems like there's people that have a vested interest in us all not getting along,
For sure.
because
I
they seem
I
like they
think
really
that
don't want us
sometimes too.
cooperating.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Man. Hey, one more. I want to ask you one more thing. You
Go for
said
it.
you had a friend that is a utopian history expert.
Yes.
What does that mean? What? Who is it?
So,
What?
so my friend Danny.
Unbox. Yeah.
So my friend Danny, who I host the Road to Hell podcast with, his thing and what he studied is utopian theory throughout history. Like, that's what his passion is. Like, so he gets into cybernetics and all the people that, like, have been writing specifically for particular organizations, eugenics and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
He follows how the people have the vision of the perfect world and how they've tried to execute that throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like co-ops here in the US during like the early eras? Is that the eugenics programs that popped up in England during the 40s and 50s?
Yeah.
All of that in different ways people have tried to achieve that. And I started my podcast then because he has his own podcast, The Story of Nowhere. The reason it's called The Story of Nowhere because utopia means nowhere.
Mm.
It's a fake idea. It doesn't exist. But his podcasts they're super entertaining to academic kind of people like me, but they're a little dry if you don't want to go and read a bunch of old books.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started the Road to Hell podcast because science fiction is such a good lens for a lot of the utopian ideas because so much of it focuses either it's utopia or dystopia and what each of
Yeah.
these things envisions. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, why don't we once a month we'll start talking about movies, films, and we'll let you geek out about like all of the real world history behind the ideas that are propagated in these movies. And movies are still released today. Like we've talked about The Circle. We've talked about our episode that's coming out on Monday is going to be Johnny Mnemonic from the '90s,
Hmm.
and the idea being is we have this big question: is was science fiction trying to warn us about what the future might bring, or was it the soft sell on what the future was going to be, whether we liked it or not? And if you have the knowledge of some of the books that Danny has, you might be surprised at how close some of these science fiction writers were to people in
Mm,
some very unsavory organizations, like, say, Aldous Huxley, whose brother
yeah,
was a member of the, what are they called? Fabian socialists, who are known eugenicists.
yeah. I
So,
found that out the other day. I couldn't believe. I was like, "What? Wait a minute. That's
yeah,
wild."
but it's a little bit conspiracy minded, but at the same time, we're just talking about science fiction movies, and you can think we're all kooks and crazy about it, but it's still fun to go back and talk about these old movies.
For sure, for sure, man. Uh,
I'm a talky
well,
person, and I'm a busy person, so I can have a lot to talk about.
I hear you.
So I'm not sure how long you envision your episodes being, but
I mean, we're at an
I
hour
know
and
where we're at.
36.
I'm
Oh
just apologizing for it being so long if you didn't want it to be.
no, dude. I honestly, I think as long as the conversation is natural, it's a good podcast. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I think that's some should be 1 hour, some should be two, some should be 10 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but anything else that you want to get off your chest? Anything? Let me ask you this one more. I got a good one. So,
Okay.
how old is your daughter, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, she'll be 9 in
9 years old.
March.
9 years old. So, she's homeschooled. What advice would you give to the fathers out there that have an 8-year-old daughter?
That's a good question. I'm weird with advice when it comes to my daughter
Okay.
because I listen to, I guess we'll say normie parents, and some of the stuff that they complain about just doesn't reflect my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think
That's why I'm asking you.
the advice that I would give to any parent is spend as much time with your kid as you can. Eventually she's going to be 18,
Yeah.
and I don't want me having not spent the proper amount of time being why she goes to the stripper pole. Um,
For sure.
for me, I want my daughter to be an entrepreneur, and so when we're hanging out, we're talking about stuff. I love giving my little life lessons, like so. Irma, when you're selling something, just remember the thing that you have is not what you're selling. What you're really selling is the experience of owning the thing.
Indeed. Indeed. So yeah, you're not you don't want to sell yourself like they say or sell benefits. What you're really trying to be is a guide and letting them guiding that customer through exactly what you said, the experience of owning whatever that item or service really is.
So you
And
could
you
you
said
could
it well.
hey, these are all the features this thing has, but what they really care about is my life going to be fundamentally easier because of this? That's what matters to me.
Oh,
Do I make more
yeah,
money because I own this thing?
right.
I don't care how it
Right.
works. Just what is
Do I
it going
make
to work for me?
Right. Do I make more money because I have it? Do I obtain more status because I drive
Yeah.
it? Do I feel better about my safety because it's attached to my
Well, and
all
the
those
and the
things is
real
what
trick, the real trick is understanding which one of those motivations corresponds to which people. Because even
yeah,
it's one thing to understand that, yeah, you're
that is
selling
sales.
the
That is
benefits,
marketing.
but the hard part is listening long enough, building that relationship with people to understand what it is that they want, to give them what they want.
Yeah.
So, if to do the plug at the end, if anyone needs help with their marketing, or you want to talk about marketing, look me up, Nicky P, at nickpacone.com, or you can go to nickypcopywriter.com.
Yeah, and both of those links will be in the description of this video. And thanks for listening, everybody. I appreciate it. Thanks, Nikki, for being on.
Thanks for having me, boss.